All right, so in the interest of time and respecting everybody's time, we can get started now. So thank you all for coming. This is going to be a workshop on how to run local LLMs and also about local LLMs in general. We decided CSI would be the best place to do this, even though I go to Baruch, because there is a high performance computing cluster here. Sam and I just came from his office and visited the cluster, and we believe that there should be more education brought around it. And also, this is a topic interesting for other reasons as well.
Yep. So let's get right on started. So who are we? I'll go from the right first. I'm Hussam. I'm a full-time electrical and computer engineering student here at CSI, graduating in like a month. And then, yep. And then former TSMC process engineering intern. So I visited the fab up in Arizona, or down in Arizona. But I love to experiment with all layers of the AI stack, and then I'll hand it off to Ethan.
Do you want to explain what the layers are? No?
So the layers go from the bottom layers of energy, right? So because you need the energy to power it, and then it goes all the way through the data centers, where a lot of the hubbub is about AI, and then it goes through infrastructure, and then finally a lot of it is application. As you'll see today, the application layer, there's a lot of space to move freely with application, right? Even when you've built all the other layers of AI, you still need the product. Why are people using AI? When are people using AI? How are they using AI? And you'll see today that that can be difficult to get precise.
Hey, and I'm Ethan. I'm a full-time learning engineer at a nonprofit called PlayLab. I was employee number 3, and now we're at 50. We are an AI edtech company. I work globally from Ghana to California. Here, I came from California and DC last week, deploying AI in like schools and nonprofit settings. I was also formerly a neuroscience and bio research assistant at Brooklyn College, and I'm full-time at PlayLab and full-time at Baruch.
Okay. So why are we doing this? You want to start off with Empire AI? You're very interested in that.
Yeah, I'll go over the first few. I'll go over the first 3. So there's this thing called Empire AI. There's a $500 million like promise / grant / investment into AI in New York City. A lot of the money has gone to a new data center in upstate New York, as well as a lot of research projects. I believe very few people, I'm making the assumption that very few people here have heard of Empire AI or have been impacted by Empire AI, even though it's $500 million being spent towards CUNY, Cornell, NYU, Columbia, and SUNY. And then the CUNY HPCC, we just came from the office. There's, I believe it's over $2 million worth of compute in there, and very few people know how to use it, know when to use it, know how to access it, or know what to do with it, even if it was given to them. And then career-wise, this stat does sound crazy, but it is the case at a lot of the big labs, like Anthropic, OpenAI. The median applied AI engineer salary is $245,000. And then machine learning infra or infrastructure engineer at staff level is from $250,000 to $400,000. Transparently, I'm not supposed to say some of this. I won't say the company, but I was recently in an interview round, and it was the salary number of 300 to 400 was just getting thrown around. And I believe that most classes don't teach exactly towards that. It's not maybe their job to do so, but we think it's in everyone's best interest for us to host things like this in service of that.
Yep. And I want to go on towards data privacy. That's a pretty big thing that comes up anytime you utilize AI in like a professional instance. For example, I've in my past 2 work experiences, I worked at North Atlantic Industries up in Long Island. They are an aerospace manufacturer. They make like motherboard for the Boeing airplanes and all that, and the navigation systems, like the black box navigation systems. So when the plane fails or helicopters fail, there's like a backup system. Basically, AI is super important to what they do and how they work nowadays, but you can't have your employees just drag and dropping all the sensitive and proprietary files into the ChatGPT box and giving OpenAI all that data. Not saying that they do anything bad with it, but you want everything to be in-house or on-prem. So every single company will make their own AI version, right? So at TSMC, we had T-Bot. It's just ChatGPT, but it makes sure that all the information goes to only them and it never leaves the premise. So the local model push we have going on here is super relevant to all professional instances. And then also, this is super important for our regional industry, right? We're in NYC. NYC, we have the talented schools in the capital. We have brilliant students and also brilliant non-students. And I'm sure all of us can benefit from this push towards educating on AI. And also, CUNY is the largest urban public university in the country. The next wave of AI builders should look like the city they come from. I think it's very important that we educate here at CUNY because we have all the resources we need. We just need to act on it.
All right, and I'll just jump straight into it. Now we're going to go over like the designation between cloud LLMs and local LLMs. So cloud LLMs, this is what maybe most of you are familiar with. These are the Meta, Microsoft, Google, AWS cloud providers that serve things like GPT 5.5 and Sonnet 4.6 and Muse Spark and Gemini 3.1 Pro on their servers. And so this year, the CapEx or the capital expenditure projection is over, and the promise from these four companies is over $700 billion. And so this is completely on cloud-based LLMs. So that's the ChatGPT, that's the Claude, that's the Meta AI, that's the Gemini. And then these are the models themselves. So these are the models that are being run on that cloud infrastructure. For example, recently Google Cloud and AWS have all boasted in their earnings call year-over-year growth, and a large fraction of it has purely been one of these few companies. And so with that being the case, it is obvious, in other states, these sort of workshops are like training you on how to operate a data center or data center electrician jobs. We are not afforded that opportunity in New York. Some people are grateful for that. But with that being said, I do believe that we should have some sort of share or contribution in this, generally speaking.
I'm going to move on to local LLMs. The AI model that is downloaded and executed directly on your own computer. And basically, to contrast the cloud LLMs and to kind of hone in on the benefits of it all, these local LLMs are very important, like I said, to keep on-prem for privacy, also for environmental benefits. But first, let's keep it to infrastructure here and application layers. So over here, Ethan, would you like to explain how these are separated?
So when we use ChatGPT, we're just saying, hey, ChatGPT, or you're a little more advanced than that, you're calling the API. You're not actually touching the Blackwell GPUs. You're not actually touching anything that GPT 5.5, Claude Sonnet, Claude Opus are actually running on. When you do things locally, you do have to handle a lot more of that. So there's things like VLLM, SGLang, Llama CPP. These are like the inference engines. So the models themselves are just a group of like weights. And there's a brief file that describes how to handle and calculate the weights. Now, in order to calculate those weights, you need one of these engines in order to perform that. Similar to how you need an operating system to use Mac, or you need Windows to use a Windows laptop, you need something in order to actually run the model. Mm-hmm. Ollama, which we're going to go over today, we're going to get hands-on with this. Ollama is like the runtime and like the handler of all the files. It'll give you a UI or interface. It'll allow you to chat back and forth, and it'll handle a lot of that. Because with AI, when you take the model itself, that model, you cannot simply chat with that model. You need to build the product and application layer to chat with the model. And in that application layer, you need to build like a dictionary or a list of messages. So when you say the next message, it knows what you said before, so on and so forth. MLX is Apple's inference engine. This is Google AI Edge Gallery, so you can use local models on your phone. And these right here, Unsloth is where you can like fine-tune models. So we'll get into that. With local models, you can actually manipulate the model itself rather than just tell it to do or not do certain things. And then Hugging Face is where you could download these models. You can do so on Kaggle as well. And LM Studio is very similar to Ollama in that sense.
They also host data sets. I just want to mention that Kaggle, a lot of the students here, I know my friend Thomas and I, we pull data sets from this for our MATLAB course, and it's very popular for students to use Kaggle for that. And then as AI came into the field, it kind of geared itself towards that too, and providing data sets for AI. And also AI models itself is hosted. I know Hugging Face and Kaggle kind of serve similar purposes, but one focuses on the other, Kaggle on data sets and Hugging Face on.
Exactly. And also on Kaggle, if you're interested, with open models, since you can fine-tune them, the companies are kind of saying, I'm giving it to you, but they also hold competitions as to who can make it better. So for example, tomorrow is the end of a deadline. I know it's very soon. It's the end of a deadline for what's called the Gemma for Good challenge. They're giving the person who fine tunes it the best for certain metrics, depending on what you want to focus on, they're giving them $200,000 if they open source the model. So there's like bounties for who can make this better, who can make this better for medicine, who can make this better for reading CAT scans, who can make this better for giving advice on blood pressure medication. There's a lot of money out there in manipulating these models. And with the fine tuning aspect, I'll just touch on it right now. What it is so the model itself was trained on a corpus of data. Wherever they pulled the data from, we can have that conversation another time. But there's some proprietary data, and there's ways of manipulating the data in a certain way that once you give it to the model can learn certain patterns that it would have otherwise not learned. And so with that being the case, what some hospitals are doing is they're fine-tuning the GEMMA model we're going to use today for different specialties. So they'll have a GEMMA model for cardiology, they'll have a GEMMA model for neurology. And so each of those, it's a specialized model. And so instead of using just ChatGPT, this huge model that can do all of these things and using it only for like one sliver of what it can do, they make a model that is only that one sliver. And not only is it cheaper, not only can they put whatever they want in it because it's on premises, it's not going anywhere, they can delete it, they can have their IT delete it if they want it, or they can just not save it. But along with that, when you have a model that's specialized in something, you are giving up a lot, but you can make it like extremely good at that one thing it can do. And you can have it in a sensor, it could run on some sort of med tech device. You'll see it run on your phones or laptops today as well.
Okay, awesome. And then on the right here, those are just some popular models. By the way, everything we've mentioned on this page is like very kind of state of the art and well known. None of these are like little random standoff apps. Like you mentioned Olama to somebody in the machine learning field, they'll know it right away, Kaggle, etc. So these are all relevant. And I'll just move on. So benefits of local LLMs. This is like the real meat and potatoes of this event. What do people care about? Why should you care about local LLMs, right? So privacy, your data stays with you. It runs directly on your personal device. This matters a lot, especially for medical reasons, the medical field also. You don't want your prescriptions or any confidential files to be sent to a company's cloud server. There's so many times where they'll be like, oh, yeah, we collect the data for learning, for training only. And then there comes out some lawsuit and whatever, and your data gets leaked. No risk with that on local AI. There's offline access, AI without internet. We'll see today that this entire event is offline. And you can run anything on any edge device, your phone, your laptop, just depends on which parameters you use. And then, of course, lower long-term costs. You're not using subscription, you're not using per API, and yeah, completely free. It's just charging your device.
Yeah, and I want to touch on the few points there. So for example, like there's a company called Mistral. It's a really popular French AI company. All of their model weights and all of their code base was, it's for sale right now because some hackers got into it. And the assumption is that Mistral was using a cloud provider that wasn't really well known, and the hackers had full access into it. And so as Mistral, the company, was sending the prompts, the hackers were just gathering all their input prompts, and they mapped their whole code base, and then they recreated it, and now they're selling it to whoever wants to buy the ransom there. And so along with that, there have been the Gemini models, Gemini 2.5 Pro, which was out last year. There was an employee that stole the whole model and did take prompts along with it that users were putting in to train models in another country that I won't name. And then regarding the offline access, AI without internet, I do a lot of work on AI in Ghana. We serve 2 million students and 80,000 educators. We're only really able to serve 2/3 of those folks because of the connectivity issue. Some folks don't have internet. They have all of the grant funding in the world. You can buy them all of the MacBooks to run things locally. It's just no one's aware of that. And so they're just not getting service. The money's there, everything is there. It's just the networking is not there, so they can't get service whatsoever. Because networking is a huge infrastructure project. You know, Starlink is getting more popular. You can consider that. Some folks are not very comfortable with that quite yet. And so that's another point there. And then the lower long-term costs, as these cloud models get better and better, they usually get larger and larger. Even though the hardware gets better, the larger the model, the more expensive it is to run or use inference on. And with that being the case, the new Claude Opus 4.7 model that came out is 50% more expensive than Claude Opus 4.6. And Anthropic said, hey, we're deprecating 4.6. So now you are just forced to pay 50% more. You can't even consider or use the previous model from before. And let's say you really liked a model, let's say you really liked GPT-5, just as an example, you can no longer use that. They're removing it from the API, they're removing it from ChatGPT, so there are limitations there. And regarding the environmental awareness, so local AI does not require data centers. They don't require data centers because it's happening locally on your device. Now, with that being the case, that doesn't mean no electricity is being used, so on and so forth, but it is being used more efficiently. A lot of these GPUs are sitting idle, or they're being used for experiments that are failing and constantly going and failing. And so with those being on your device, the model is more specialized and smaller, and so it would take less compute to run. That is a real concern nowadays. A lot of folks I talk to, especially our age, some of them are not a fan of AI because of what they're hearing about different towns and data centers, and I fully hear them, but I would hate for them to not be able to experience this technology with us and benefit from the technology with us. So this is an alternative for them. And then also customization. All of these models have biases. We can't see inside of the model. It's a black box. You call an API and you get a response back. You see some benchmarks, and that's all you have. You have nothing else. But with an open model, you are at least able to change the model or the brain behind the model itself to gear towards a certain direction, and you'll be able to add certain sensors, remove certain sensors if you like. And that'll be it for this slide.
Yeah. And I also want to touch on the environmental awareness thing with the electricity usage thing. On local models, you're using your laptop and your phone anyway, right? Like the only electricity you use is when you plug in your laptop to charge it, which is, I don't want to say that's nothing, but compared to what the data centers are doing and the way the concern they're causing, rightful concern, by the way, totally valid. This is an amazing alternative to the data center models. So. And this slide is a comparison of the open source and closed source. So there is the comparison of local versus the online models. There's also the open source and the closed source. So there's kind of four-square comparison going on. The open source models, they can be downloaded. They can run locally on your own device and server. There's more privacy and control. The community can test it. And the examples we have are Llama, Quen, and I know this was a popular one. I don't know if anyone heard about it, but DeepSeek. There's a big hubbub back in it. We're going to have a comparison graph later on today, and it's going to visit DeepSeek and how kind of there was an overreaction upon the DeepSeek release, and Ethan will touch up a bit on that. And then there's also, like he said, Mistral and Gemma. And if you have any comments on the open source.
Yeah, and regarding the open source as well, we're going to get into it in a little bit about the country comparisons as well as the performance and price comparisons. With the open source models, most companies don't like open sourcing because you're just giving it away. You paid to train the model, that's where most of the cost is, and then you're just saying, yeah, you can have it on your device. I can't take any profit from the inference. When you use OpenAI's models or Claude's models, what they're doing is they're just marking up the at-cost price of serving the model, where you have the model and you're having someone use it. Because in their mind, you're not paying for us to train the model. No one's like donating money while they're training the model. So their economic model is, we're gonna just charge you extra when you use the model after it's done training. Open source is saying, we incurred all of the downside of the cost, and you get all of the benefit. Now, there's more nuance to it than that, but that's it for right now. You want to go over closed source?
So closed source, as like a direct juxtaposition to open source, the issue with closed source is once they up the cost or close the previous models, you're locked out, essentially. It's all proprietary. There was a big issue with a certain model of GPT. I think it was Keep 4.0.
Yeah.
It's a little comedic, but at the same time, a pretty serious issue. A lot of the users of GPT 4.0 got very closely connected with GPT 4.0. Like it was kind of encouraging the user no matter what they were talking to. So they're really like a lot of young teens like getting obsessed with personas created by the GPT 4.0. And then I think how long was the warning they gave prior to closing it down? It was almost immediate.
So once they realized, do you want to touch on it?
No, it's okay.
No. Would you like to touch on it?
No, they don't care about the disruption. They just want to make sure that
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
threat or whatever.
Yeah,
to their
definitely.
business model essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And also, with that being the case, they knew of the danger internally way ahead of time. But once it started getting popular and people were saying, this is my best friend, or hashtag keep 4.0 because they never wanted it to leave, then OpenAI realized like, hey, this is kind of an issue. People are suing us because the young individual killed themselves, or people are suing us because in certain chat logs, it's encouraging them to go down certain paths. And then at that point, they said, hey, we're going to deprecate the model. And once they did it, people were boycotting OpenAI. They were on Reddit and other platforms saying, oh, I canceled my subscription. And interestingly, OpenAI then brought it back and said, hey, we brought it back. We saw that the need was there, or the desire was there. But interestingly, when they brought it back, as we'll go into it, they changed the system prompt behind it, something you can't control in the ChatGPT app.
Mhm.
People were then mad about that.
Yeah.
So they develop a sort of like a Stockholm syndrome to the tool that they're using. It's just hurting them. They didn't realize that like it has them in their grips, and now they can't release it. People still talk about Keep 4.0.
Yeah.
People have tried to fine tune other open source models to act like 4.0. So it's kind of a cult in a sense.
Yeah, and it'll never be the same. You can't ever get the exact weights put into 4.0 because they closed it, brought it back, but brought it back while changing it, so it's not 4.0. So everybody that had close relationships with 4.0, and it's a serious issue, they'll never get that back. So you guys should look into it for Keep 4.0 in the future. But also costs as well, like the per token cost. So token commonly, I mean, there's a lot of specifics about it, but you can think of a token as each word outputted by AI or processed by, and the cost per token is what everybody talks about. And also you'll see when we run our model locally today, the hands-on part, by the way, guys, you should be excited, it's coming up. It'll tell you the tokens per second. So everything is measured in the metric of tokens, right? How many, the words outputted, how long did it take for each word to be spit out? Like ChatGPT pulls out like 1,000 in a second. And, but the costs also. So the cost, for example, Anthropic, when they moved from.
Yeah, so does anyone want to share a model with me, and I'll just tell you the cost of it, most likely?
Opus 4.7.
Opus 4.7 costs $5 per million input tokens and $25 per million output tokens. So let's say you were to put a textbook in there. If we were to put a textbook in, it would cost us about $5. If we were to ask for a textbook out, it would cost us $25. In the chat product itself, that's not too much of a concern. In coding agents like Claude Code, it's a huge concern because it's editing multiple files, reading whole files, and also when you're chatting with AI, the longer you chat with it, it's sort of exponential. So if you say hi, it's going to say hi back. The next time you say, let's say, can you help me? It's reading, hi, can you help me? And so each message is just growing in the amount of input tokens. That's why the $20 Claude plan, it's really hard to use Opus because you just hit your limit within a few minutes sometimes.
Yeah, because it takes into account context. So with closed source, you don't want to get dependent, and because everything's in the control of the provider. Open source, we hope to change that. Local models change that. So parameters as well. A small model would be, and that just goes to show like the weights put in and the amount of compute for that. And so for large models, right, it's better for general reasoning, and it handles more complex tasks, right? Like the state-of-the-art ChatGPT, Opus, right, all the Claude agents, and it needs cloud GPUs and big servers, right? These massive data centers. A lot of the concern is centered around that. And it's more expensive to run, but you know, it's good for your coding, your research, your planning, and your agents. But we'll touch up on this, but that the use case, it's not always needed. You don't always need a massive 2 trillion parameter agent. You don't need to throw Opus 4.7 at how do I bake an apple pie, right? Your small models can do just fine with that. They're really brilliant. We'll see today they're actually amazing because I will touch up on this. The large models of last year are the small models of today. AI is growing so fast and so efficient that the ChatGPT everyone was impressed for and writing papers with or whatever else 2 years ago, the small models of today that can run on your laptop absolutely trump it. So if you want to touch up on that.
Yeah, so if we go to the next slide, we can come back. Sorry, next slide. One more. Yeah, so this is an interesting graph. So this is from Artificial Analysis. You could check it out if you want to. They have a lot of great visualizations.
Hug the face, I think.
This is from Artificial Analysis.
Artificial analysis.
Yeah, so this is their intelligence index. So it's a combination of a few benchmarks. So how well can it perform in real world tasks, agentic tasks like doing things for you, coding tasks. So with that being said, something very interesting is this is the model we're going to play with today. So we got a 15. It seems like an arbitrary number, but let's just keep it relative. We got a 15 on the artificial analysis index. The GPT-4o, the best model that was available March of last year, got a 19. The second smallest Gemma 4 model that you can run today as well if you want, got a 19 as well. So we got the same exact. So something that could theoretically run on a brand new iPhone got the same exact score as what was running on like the Abilene, Texas Oracle GPUs last year. Now the largest Gemma model got a 39. The Claude Sonnet that most people use in Claude got a 44, and the current GPT 5.5 that people use in platform got a 51. So this is to say, last year, this was the peak. Last year, here was this. This year, the smallest model is nearly the same intelligence level. So with that being said, I don't think many folks here, I can't confidently say that the rigor or the impact of my tasks has grown 3x. But the size of the model or the intelligence of the models that I'm using day to day has grown 3x. So it's kind of confusing. It's like, is it my fault? Is it the product's fault? Am I not getting hard enough like work tasks?
Yeah.
Is it just a matter of there are new shortcomings that I haven't listed here? Like, what is it? Like, so this is also something I want folks to think about when they leave here. Like, as these models get better, like, is it curing cancer for lack of a better term? Folks are not seeing that. This is where a lot of like the animosity or the distrust for big tech companies and data centers comes into play because all of this money is being spent and they're not seeing a huge tangible impact. The people seeing a huge tangible impact might be engineers at certain companies who have an unlimited Claude Code or Codex or Cursor budget, but some day-to-day folks are saying like, hey, like, I don't see much of a difference. It looks like the same ChatGPT as before. How are you going to tell me it's 3 times smarter when I'm asking the same questions? And that's also like disrespectful to me to like for you to admit that, oh yeah, last year's model, we knew it was really bad. We just didn't want to tell you. Because are they going to do that to us next year? That this is like some of the question around closed source.
Yeah, and if there's anything I want you guys to leave with today, like this is the most important point. The model we have downloaded on the flash drives here today, literally on a tiny, less than 16 gigabyte flash drive. I think 2B takes around how many gigabytes?
2B takes 7 gigabytes.
7 gigabyte model has around the same intelligent index of ChatGPT from last year, March.
Yeah, and so to talk about parameters, so parameters are like the neuronal connections within the model. So GPT-4o was suspected to be 1.4 trillion parameters. Gemma E2B is 2 billion parameters. So that is a huge difference only for a slight bump in intelligence. And this is why the DeepSeek moment also was so popular last year, because it was the first time we got to see something of on-par intelligence with the ChatGPT at the time, and we were able to see how large it was.
And even the 4B isn't an insane increase in space. We could have also brought 4B. It would have just taken a little longer download, and we want this to be a quick, nice hands-on activity. And that exactly matches GPT-4o, something that required insanely large data centers to train, to get it up, and to upkeep from last year now runs on your laptop off of a flash drive on a quick event here at CSI. Just to let you know, if you think it's a little slow now or like not as good as the current ChatGPT, give us another year. It'll do everything you need. You won't need any of these large, insanely consumption models.
And
So
this is also why like prices of certain computers and maybe Mac Minis are getting really expensive, because what you can do with the size of that small computer is growing and growing and growing. And so if you can do that with, Apple knows how much you can now do with external resources using their technology, so the price is getting bumped up. You go back slightly.
Yeah.
So this is something I want to touch on quickly. I'll let Sam talk about open versus closed over here. But I do want to, I know there's always a lot of conversation around America does closed source, China does open source, China's winning, America's winning. These people are catching up to these people. So with that being said, the newest DeepSeek model that came out last week, V4, is scored a 52 on the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, and GPT 5.5 scored a 60 on there. And so this trend, week by week, month by month, the scale the the trend always looks the same. The closed source model is a hair behind. It's the same exact spot as the open source model is a hair behind. Same exact spot as closed source was a month ago. And it seems like they're just playing like catch up and like tag. But that's also to say it's interesting. If you look at the countries here and then match it with the open source here, you'll see that China is mostly represented in the open weight and open source models.
Yep, and I'm gonna touch up on the openness. So over here, same as before, it's a intelligence index scale on that right graph over there, the bar graph. This is showing in different colors. There's proprietary and open weights. So the proprietary, like we said, is those closed source models, and the open weights is the open source models. This is just to show that the open source is not far behind. Over here, we have the CUNY K2. It's scoring, I think that's a 54. Compared to 60 for an open source model, I would say that the open source is, like he said, always just a hair behind. Yet this trend does seem to continue. The usual use case means no difference in the usual customer. I don't think any of us here would really notice the difference if we used an open source model as opposed to a closed source.
And also, it is the case that someone mentioned Opus 4.7. Opus 4.5 scored like a 51. So the current open source is better than the Opus 4.5 that everyone was paying $1,000 a month for. And also, with that being said, let's compare something. So if we look at GPT 5.5 High, I believe it's around $30 per million output tokens. Kimi, I believe, is $3. So the open source models are not taking like a profit. They're doing it at cost practically. And so with that, it is also the case that there are some open source model companies that have recently gone closed source. They believe they've gotten so close to the leading companies that they're no longer releasing the weights. Now that does lead to an interesting conversation where it's like, were they just acting like an altruistic company until they started winning and then they realized like this business model no longer works? So it's just something to think about. I think you all may be experts more in that than me. You're into economics. Continue on. All right, so now let's go into the workshop portion. So I'd love if folks have your laptop, if you could take it out, and yeah.
I just want to announce something real quick. If you want to do this process online, that works too. But we also downloaded the model and also what runs the model, Olama, on flash drives. It's only about say a 10 gigabyte download, and then you can delete it right after, and it's a pretty quick transfer. I only say that in case you don't have data, right? So, but we do encourage you so that it's neat to think that this whole event can be done offline. We don't need any data whatsoever. So for the remote schools in other countries where you have one teacher for 5 grades and there's only 3 students, a single AI agent on a single flash drive can completely educate and enrich that class of 3 students for a large portion of their lives. And so basically, sorry to get off topic there, we have a bunch of flash drives here, adapters for whatever you need, USB-C and USB 3.0. And if you want the online download, I think Ethan put it somewhere.
So if you want the online download, like it's perfectly fine. If you don't want to take a risk with the flash drives, you can go to this site. It's just docs.nyc-ai.app, and then you can go to the local LLMs tab, and there's a step-by-step online setup on the bottom. So I recommend if you're a little weary, just go straight there.
Make a PDF that says hi. How do you spell your name?
Okay, now we
No?
want to
Okay. Hi, Hussam. I'll do my name.
make up a fake wide range
Hussam
of questions.
called
Called
offline test.
They may also take users to
Sometimes on a new chat, you have to boot it up again, kind of do like a second type in. So there you go. This is because of a certain routing issue. Basically, it's looking for which way to route it towards, which agent mode it wants. And then sometimes you just type /exit to exit agent execution loop. It should really just default to this reasoning mode, but this still works just fine. Like I said, that sometimes that first prompt takes a second. Okay, look at that. So it did a tool call, and agent executing create PDF file. It wants to create my PDF file, and it's calling it offline test PDF. And you could set it to always allow, but you could approve and reject on each instance. And look at that. What does it say? Look at that. Hi Hussam, called offline test. And it can sort these into your laptop wherever you want. It can manage the files already in your laptop, right? The retrieval augmented generation. It can do all these impressive things where it's tailored specifically to you and it runs completely offline. So that was mostly like a full demo of it, and there's a whole bunch more tools available on anything LLM, like I said.
So right now we're basically testing what we're doing through the anything LLM. We're asking it questions and we're seeing where it's pulling its information from and just playing around with it.
Is this offline or online?
Offline.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So we're both psychology majors and psychology interested. So we decided to ask some neuro and psych focused questions like what myelinated axons do and what the resting membrane potential for a neuron is. And it was basically able to pull out all this information without being connected to Wi-Fi and give us detailed answers. And that's honestly crazy to me because let's say you want to implement this in a third world country where there's no access to internet or internet is hard to come by. It would actually change the life of a student so much, allowing them to access multiple different pieces of information and allow them to learn much more. So yeah, you can see here like it went into detail about what myelinated axons do, which any neuroscience major should know increases speed. And then resting memory potential. It's pretty cool. Cool stuff.
My name is Noor. My name is Mark. My friend told me about the event through the CSI poster. He got an email on the CIX email.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
We came together.
And are you guys interested in AI?
Yeah, I built my own AI at some point. But yeah, it's very nice. It's very cool to like learn it. Yeah.
And what did you learn today?
About the open models and the closed models, I like local and like the difference between cloud LLMs and local LLMs. That's basically it.
I'm still knowing the basics. I'm trying to know more.
The best use cases for local AI in the real world would be like running anything private without usually going to a server. So that's basically the main use for it. Yeah.
If you're like, for example, I work a lot in Ghana, like in Africa. A lot of folks there can't use some of the models that we built for them because they can't connect to the internet. But if we were to provide them with a local model and a laptop, they can service many students from there. So right now, this individual is using Gemma for E2B in airplane mode. So yeah, so when it's on airplane mode, you can ask anything that you would have otherwise asked. It just cannot connect to the internet. If you give it access to your files, it can talk to your files, it can edit your files. That if you have, it has access and the product allows that. But otherwise, you can ask anything else that you would have asked a local model. The model itself is unchanged.
Can we see an example of airplane mode?
Yeah, Gil, do you mind showing? Yeah, so if we go here, what I want to do is let's stop this request. Proof that airplane mode is turned on. We're going to say hi to the camera. Awesome. And so as we can see there, that's running purely on the phone's device. That is not running on any sort of server or data center.
And Ethan, what's the use case of having LLMs that are offline?
Yeah, so let's say theoretically, okay, worst case scenario, solar flare, you can rebuild everything through the knowledge of the LLM if you don't know it yourself. Some crazy cases are if you're in an emergency, you don't know how to filter water. If you're in an emergency, you don't know how to start a fire and you need to show a picture of a rock or ask for examples or directions. If you're in a certain place and the model has knowledge as to the directions and you're lost, if you're in a medical emergency and you just can't seem to get any connection, as well as other things. If you don't have a SIM card, for example, if you don't know where to go for a certain thing and you just don't have access to those resources, or if you're in a developing nation and you don't have that connectivity, you don't have a Starlink plate, you can use a local model there. Yeah, so the 54 to 60 is like an average of 10 tests. One of the tests is called CRIT-P, it's like critical physics reasoning. The other test is Sci-Code, scientific coding. The other test is agents val, how well it can call tools depending on what it is that it thinks you want. The other one is a coding index, the other one's instruction following. The other one is GDP val, how well it can do like real world tasks like use Excel, use PowerPoint, things like that. And then humanities last exam is a test written by like a ton of PhD students of questions that have never existed. And what they do is that's the test set. It's not the training set. So
It's different. They never considered. It was never asked before. So you can't.
it was never asked
They can't
before.
cheat. You can't like use what
Yeah.
it knows. Like let me look at my data set.
How many questions are there? Is just one question from each category?
I think it's around 100 questions.
Okay,
And they
so-
all do pretty bad. Like they all get like 50s. That's, but
That's what we
before it
think.
was a come. And I want to thank you all for coming. And do you have any parting words?
Guys, you all did very well. Very great. Very cool event. Like we said, we have pizza. Please, you don't have to stop right now. I think Cody told me there wasn't a class right after, so this room is free for quite a bit. So stay if you guys want to talk and everything, just because we're not kicking you guys out. It's staying all the same. But yeah.
Oh, one more thing. I'm so sorry. So I'm also really passionate about. I want net job growth over the next 5 years. There's always conversations about like AI taking jobs. When I say net job growth, okay, jobs are going to change, but my ideally it's the total amount of jobs available and hiring is just going to go up. And I don't have full control over that, but it is my hope that anyone who was here can either provide an opportunity or they can get an opportunity based off of the knowledge they've learned here. For example, the new JP Morgan building, like the bottom 3 floors are all servers. They're not looking, I mean, it's cool if you know AWS and Azure and Google Cloud, but they're looking for folks who could say, I see a machine, I see the hardware, I have the software, I can connect it. Very few people can do that. Very few people even know that's possible. And so that's it from me. Does anyone else in here want to share anything before we go? It doesn't have to be thank you. It could just be like, this was super confusing. I'm never doing this again. But that's also an insight.
All good?
If not, all right. Thank you all.